Yes, sir, we are going live.
Okay, let me know when it goes live.
It's live, sir.
A very warm welcome and good afternoon to all our attendees and delegates. We're very fortunate and lucky to have Sri Abhishek Singh as part of the India Internet Governance Forum in this fireside chat on digital platform initiatives. Abhishek Singh comes in the line of stalwarts who have been building and creating the digital platform infrastructure, which has been the hallmark of India's initiatives and ability to really tap digital for the masses, for the population. We are clearly decades ahead of many other nations. In fact, we are in the forefront, globally speaking, in being able to create digital platform infrastructure at our population scale and be able to sustain and provide that practically glitch free year after year, month after month, day after day, in fact, second after second. And a lot of that credit goes to Abhishek Singh. Abhishek did his undergrad from IIT Kanpur. In fact, we had the fortune to be in the same campus at the same time. He's my senior. And thereafter, he joined the civil services and has been in various capacities and roles. And for the last 10 years, he has been dedicated in the digital area, providing the policy support and initiatives that is much needed for a nation like ours. Very warm welcome to you, Abhishek Singh, and thank you for joining us today. I'll start by my first question to you, which is what exactly is a digital platform infrastructure?
Thank you, Jayjeet, for having me over for this fireside chat. And it's indeed interesting to see the various sessions that are going on as part of the IIGF. So, specifically speaking to your question with regard to what are the digital public infrastructures, what are digital public goods, so primarily this term is being used very commonly at various forums globally and within India with regard to when we refer to digital solutions that have been implemented at a population scale which are addressing some of the societal needs and some of the societal challenges that people face. Like for any public to citizen interface, one very basic core requirement for every citizen is to whether to access any kind of services is to establish his identity. So various governments across the world have been trying to solve this challenge, and in India we also started like 2008 we had hardly 25 to 30% people who could prove their identities which was verifiable in any form. So with the advent of technology, the Aadhaar project was conceptualized, and it used biometrics as a means for creating the identity so that anybody could, without having a document, could also get an identity just because he had an existence, he had his biometrics, and he had his iris. So with the iris scans and the biometric scans, the Aadhaar ID was created, and then it was created on a anywhere, anytime basis with the requirement of very minimal inputs to be required. And it was built at a population scale, rolled out across India. Within 10 years, we have more than a billion Aadhaar IDs which have been created. It is facilitating cash transfers, it is facilitating financial inclusion, and it is letting people access basic services like getting rations or getting social welfare benefits. So that this kind of digital platform which establishes ID becomes one digital public infrastructure. Similarly, for other transactions, for example, cash transactions, for example, digital transactions between one person to the other, and bringing all financial institutions together on one platform, the unified payment interface again enabled that becomes another form of digital public infrastructure. Then similarly for data exchange, for document exchange, because very often for accessing various services we need to verify the credentials of a person. So that again to eliminate paper in the transactions that people have. So the project like DigiLocker enables that for allowing verification of credentials. So that becomes another digital public infrastructure, and all of it is enabled through a very robust API based system which is enabling that. So these kind of systems have been implemented not only in India but other countries also, and widely such digital solutions implemented at a population scales which are interoperable, which are based on open standards, which allow linking with other similar systems. are commonly referred to as digital public infrastructure. In fact, the United Nations also came up with a definition of digital public goods in their Digital Public Goods Alliance approach paper, wherein also they refer to any such digital solution which is implemented at a population scale, which are based on open standards and are interoperable, are commonly known as digital public goods.
Great. I think that sounds very, very good. It explains what digital public infrastructure is. But you mentioned others have also been doing so. So, how does India's initiatives compare with the initiatives that other nations globally are taking up? Where do we stand in comparison to others?
See, the one very repeated example about such digital infrastructure is, of course, comes from Estonia, which built the X roads, which enables kind of a real paperless digital kind of transactions in everything that they do, whether it's driving licenses or whether it's their various kinds of identity certificates or even electronic voting. Estonia did it, and a lot of countries have learned from it. We have also studied Estonia model and done that. But the difference between India and other countries is that the scale at which we operate, because India, whenever we build anything, it requires a scale of it to function at a billion plus requirements. Like, for example, when the vaccination platform was built up, COVID, again, that was again another challenge that we faced, because this kind of, more than a health challenge, it was a administrative challenge also, to ensure vaccination of a billion plus people, because no other vaccination program were required to vaccinate the entire population. And added to that, the complexity was that you had two vaccines with the to begin with. Later other vaccines also came in, and with different time intervals. So to keep track of who has got vaccinated, who has got which vaccine, and when is the next dose or the booster dose due, it required a digital system. So we built that kind of system, which was built in a record time, which scaled up, which really helped us ensure that we could vaccinate most of our people. And now that platform is becoming into a universal vaccination platform, wherein we are adding other vaccines. Like, if we can track COVID, why can't we track BCG with the measles vaccine, the DPD, diphtheria, polio, tetanus vaccines, or the rubella vaccine, or the polio vaccine? All of it is built in there. So this kind of system has not been tried anywhere. Even the Aadhaar system, the way it was built, the way it was scaled up, has not tried anywhere. The UPI system, of course, was a first of its kind. Now countries like Brazil and all have started with their PIC systems, but India had been the test case of implementing such digital solutions, which have which have transformed the way citizens access public services at a scale which is unmatched everywhere, anywhere else. But yes, there are examples in Estonia. There are examples even in a country like Ukraine. In fact, I was reading about a Dia app of Ukraine, which is like an equivalent of our DigiLocker, but it has got some features which are much more interesting than our own DigiLocker. So we are trying to work with them, build in. They are learning from us, we are learning from them. So it becomes like a global community wherein we share all our digital public experiences, the solutions we have built in, learn from each other, help to make something which is interoperable and adaptable across the world. The ONDC example, for example, again, this is something which is innovation from India, but the way it has been scaled up, it will transform digital commerce. It will democratize the way we do e-commerce on the internet. And once it's scaled up in India, I am no doubt that it will become something, a global standard, which will be used across the world. Is there a So these have been the broad examples with regard to scaling up. Now, what we are working with other countries is to, especially as part of the G20 Digital Economy Working Group, is to bring together all stakeholders to come up with a framework in which we are able to share our experiences with every other country which is working on it, and ensure that adopting it and implementing it becomes easier. And the other dimension with regard to digital public infrastructure is how do we lay down the standards and how do we go forward? Because we have been like spending a lot of time in the last few months with regard to the need for digital public infrastructures. In fact, every country, in fact, when we launched the India Stack Global, which was like one place where all solutions with regard to India Stack was made available, it was launched by our Prime Minister on 4th of July, in which all major solutions, and these solutions not only include the Aadhaar, the UPI, DigiLocker, which are much well known, but also solutions like eSanjeevani, solutions like the Diksha e-learning platform. These are all also made available. And it provides like a mechanism, a toolkit with regard to if any other country or if any other organization wants to replicate this, how to go about it, how to get documentation with regard to these projects, and how to ensure that we can start a dialogue for replicating such projects. I can't hear you, Jayjit. Are you mute? And then as a follow-up of the as a follow-up of the India Stack Global event, we did organize India Stack Knowledge Exchange, which brought in around 60 countries, experts from 60 countries who interacted with us, who kind of saw how the solutions have been implemented. And now various countries have approached our project teams one on one in order to have a one in order to learn from these projects and replicate that. And to do that, what has been felt is that apart from the need for replicating this, what we actually need is to create a toolkit or maybe procurement guidelines, so that if a country wants to adopt any of these solutions, how do they go about it? And the UN's Digital Public Goods Alliance and the World Bank has been showing interest in that in order to fast forward this process, we can like set up groups in which some assessment of the existing digital capabilities of a country with regard to any digital public good that they are trying to implement is assessed, and then a roadmap prepared for adopting any of the solutions which are available. So these are some of the initiatives that we have been working with other stakeholders in this field, with other countries in this field, in order to fast forward the adoption and replication of the digital public goods. Ajit, can't hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Now, I was saying, my apologies. I had a connectivity glitch, and I was saying that's those are some of the challenges of being in the digital world, and therefore, it's even more amazing to see what the government has achieved at population scale. When even a simple system like you and me having this conversation has so many unknown dimensions, and still we are able to run a Aadhaar, a Coven, and so on and so forth, and now ONDC, which are clearly pioneering platforms from a global perspective. Having said that, Abhishek, we see that there are digital utilities like, let's say, Google Map or Google Search and so on and so forth, on which large businesses have got built. Our entire cab services, our taxi services. And one of the visions that Nandan Nilekani had when he was working on Aadhaar was to create these new industries. So, what are the industries that are emanating from the digital platforms that you and your organization, NAGD, has been supporting and taking forward? What are the new industries that have come up, which is adding to the economy, to the jobs that this country badly needs?
See, the whole fintech boom that we see, the whole every day we have been hearing. Of course, this year has been a bit of a slowdown, but till last year we've been seeing the number of unicorns, the number of investments coming in the startups. So the entire fintech boom and most of the fintech companies which have really made it big have been using many of the digital India solutions, many of the India stack products. And what they do is the eKYC is made very simpler. The cost of acquiring customers comes down. So when we look at a company like Upstocks or Razorpay, or when they're using the KYC modules of either the Aadhaar project or DigiLocker solution, these APIs are made available. So that really helps them in expanding their businesses. So fintech has clearly been a beneficiary. The next big boom that I see coming in this in the is the health sector, because the way the Ayushman Bharat digital mission is being built up, the way the Ayushman Bharat digital mission is being built up, I see at least several unicorns coming in, because the basic building blocks of the health registries, the hospital facilities, the protocols, the standards, the tools are being made up, which are being made available as a sandbox for all entrepreneurs and startup or the startup champions to use that, to leverage that, and build applications on top of it, so that citizens will have a choice. Just like we have a choice of a Paytm or a Phone Pay or a Google Pay for doing financial transactions along with the Beam. Similarly, on health, there the Arogya Setu will be the public health utility, public health app, which will allow you to discover hospitals and also get your electronic health records. Do that, keep that. But there will be other private sector companies which will provide similar services, and maybe some more value-added services, analytics-based services, wherein if you are able to give with your consent your electronic health records to some company, they may be able to track it and try to give you health advisories or link up with insurance companies. So health tech will be a big sector that we'll be seeing growth in. So there will be several, and e-commerce, of course, with ONDC coming in, the way it will revolutionize the way we do transact on the internet. So that would again see a big boom in companies which will provide much better value added services. So I see a lot of traction coming in various industries, and it will lead to ultimately creation of more jobs and creation of more value in our whole economy.
So, Abhishek, if we look at the population scale systems coming from the West, they're usually led by a corporate structure, right? Like a Meta or a Facebook or what we call as a big tech. And therefore, it's very easy for them to move out and help other countries gain the benefit of technology. And all the benefits that you mentioned that's coming from India's digital public infrastructure, they're not coming to other nations such as Nepal or Sri Lanka or Nigeria and so on, where they would also benefit from having such an infrastructure so that they can build the businesses that you just mentioned. What should India's role be in supporting and working with other countries who would need such a infrastructure, but might be challenged in terms of resources to build that infrastructure?
See, the intent of India to share all our digital public goods or the expertise that we have globally has been made very clear by none other than our Honorable Prime Minister only. In fact, last year only, he had announced that the COVID vaccination platform was not only made open source but was offered to other countries, and there are countries which are looking at adopting similar systems. Similarly, the Aadhaar system with the MOSIP initiative has gone to several countries already. The UPI, the NPCI, which is implementing the UPI, has set up the NPCI International, with which UPI is being shared with several countries, including Nepal and Bhutan, as you mentioned. And the India Stack Global initiative, what it does is that instead of various countries trying to approach individual project leaders for learning about the project or trying to work out mechanisms for adopting it, India Stack Global brings all such India's digital public goods on one platform and offers a single window kind of approach for any country to access such information. And once that is done, the other big challenge will be like to implement it, who will fund it. So ultimately, the way it's going up and the way we have had discussions with the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank and other agencies is that these agencies are supporting digital transformation projects in several countries. So this can become a part of adoption of such digital public infrastructure so that the learning curve goes down, because ultimately similar solutions will work anywhere. So it will just require a little bit of tweaking, ensuring that they conform to the local laws, ensuring that they conform to the local requirements. So the multilateral agencies and the funding available from them can be one source of that. The other can be like, given that there's so much of value is there, like whenever you look at our Aadhaar project or the kind of savings that has occurred, so there is a return on investment. So any country which is looking at implementing such digital infrastructure projects will also need to understand that over a period of 3 to 5 years, it does lead to significant savings and significant improvement in the reputations of the governments which are implementing it. So there is a lot of value in doing that. So implementation will happen, funding support will come either from the multilateral agencies or from the countries themselves.
Right, and I think it's really heartening to hear that India has stepped up and is supporting the digital initiatives of the rest of the world. I think that's really heartening and something that we should be proud of what we have been able to contribute back to the world. Abhishek, I think we have completely run out of time, and therefore we are switching over to some questions from the attendees. One of the first questions is from Shantanu Acharya of Nixie, whose question is, instead of embarking on multi-year IT transformation that corporates do, can there be a platform that helps them deliver 3 to 5 times the value in half the time and half the cost? What should be India's role in this direction to the globe? So essentially, can we create certain middleware, certain systems that accelerates the process of developing systems by the corporates?
So that is what a lot of the approach is there. Like for example, the example I mentioned about the health mission, the Ayushman Bharat digital mission. Like if you are wanting to offer a health service like what Practo did, for example, to begin with, so you would need a health registry. You will need a directory of health service providers, hospitals, laboratories, all of it, and then you will need to conform to the standards. So instead of every company trying to do that, which may take a lot of time to doing that, and a lot of part in that effort will come into the regulatory domain, where the actual permission to run hospitals or to run laboratories or to run pharmacies is given by the government. Instead of private sector trying to build those directories, these directories have been built by the National Health Authority, made available to everyone, and then you actually build your applications on top of it and to offer value added services. So that not only reduces the cost and the time, but also makes it much better. Then coming up with something like the standards for the electronic health records, coming up with something like ABHA IDs, so that the solutions that you make are interoperable. And this kind of thing, which is being done in the health sector, can also be done in the agriculture sector. The ONDC platform, which the government has built up, on top of it, when anybody builds an application or a buyer app or a seller app, the value, the time taken, the cost involved will be much lesser. So this is what is actually being done, which will lead to uh, which will lead to getting more output with lesser investments.
Right. Okay. Is there any other questions coming in by the audience? If the admin can help us. So while we're waiting for more questions to show up, there is one question that came earlier, Abhishek, is in terms of the contribution that your organization is going to make to the G20, because that's another prestigious moment for India. And you did mention about DWG and so on. What would be the contribution that you see that one can possibly make from NEGD to the initiatives that the digital leg of G20 is making?
See, NHD is part and parcel of Ministry of Electronics and IT, and Ministry of Electronics and IT is driving the digital economy working group, and and their digital public infrastructure, along with making internet safe and secure, and promoting digital skilling, are key components that have been taken up in the digital economy working group. So when it comes to building a kind of a framework for adoption, replication of India stack, and contributing to the digital public infrastructure, NEGD as part of METI will be making a big contribution. Many of the digital public infrastructure projects are being driven by NEGD's team, whether it's the API Setu or whether it's the DigiLocker or whether it's the Umang or whether it's the Diksha platform or working with the Covin. So all these projects are part of our portfolio, and we will be making it available to the entire community on the G20. And we will be also there to learn from what other solutions are coming from other countries, and to create a basically a framework, a model RFP, or a procurement guidelines, so that actual adoption replication of these projects can take place.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. There's one more question that has come in, which is in terms of what's the next step from here? What's the next big step that DPIs will take from an Indian government perspective?
Verifiable credentials, because what is happening is that a lot of time and money is spent in verifying the identity of a person for accessing any service. So now we are at that stage wherein a lot of digitization has happened, and a lot of information is already available in various systems through which this information is shared. So with a consent architecture, if a citizen gives his consent, then his eligibility can be verified for accessing any other service. So for example, if somebody is verified as a Manrega beneficiary, then and if he gives his consent, then based on those verified credentials, he can be offered Ayushman Bharat health card instead of applying for that service over and over again. So a lot of public services can be offered on this framework on a proactive basis without having the need for a citizen to apply for that. We have the National Academic Depository, we have the records of who all are studying in which universities, which colleges. We also have the databases of which communities and which classes people belong to, and there are scholarship schemes for various categories. So if a citizen gives a consent, then scholarships based on his eligibility, based on the community he belongs to, and based on his actual academic status can directly be offered without he applying for it. And then the whole academic bank of credits, which is again a system of verifiable credentials that we're building in, will allow people to port their credits from one university to the other. And at a later date, this whole ecosystem which is being built up will be used as a verifiable LinkedIn kind of system, so that employers who are wanting to employ someone, instead of spending a lot of time in their background checks, they can actually verify the credentials digitally, electronically in no time at a very little cost and ensure that hiring becomes quicker. So all of this will add a lot of value as we go forward. And similar things will be applicable in the healthcare sector, wherein medical records with consent can be shared across, analyzed by analysts, and better advice be given. So I feel that the next step will be to bring in a whole system of verifiable credentials and building value added services on top of them.
And I think that would also take care of some of the concerns that the civil society had on privacy and consent and so on and so forth. So it's been wonderful, Abhishek, talking to you and hearing about all the fantastic things that the government is doing, and you're leading some of those initiatives from NEGD under under METI. I think under this able leadership, we are sure to see many more very interesting and economically powerful digital public infrastructure coming up. Thank you so much for your time, Abhishek. It's been extremely enlightening, and I'm sure the attendees would have benefited from this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jayjeet. It was indeed a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.